Hey everybody, it's Andy Gross at the Law Office of Andrew P. Gross. We're a veterans benefits disability law firm, and we also do estate planning, veteran-focused estate planning in Maryland and D.C. But we help veterans with their disability benefits appeals wherever they may be, as long as they're a veteran of the U.S. military. Today I want to talk a little bit about the law itself, right? What are the sources of law? Because it might seem to some of us that when you get that VA rating decision, that VA rating decision is based out of stuff out of thin air. I want to talk about the basic sources of law here. The 30,000 foot view is the statute itself, right? That is the thing that is passed by Congress, or rather the things that are passed by Congress. And there have been some pretty big ones recently, like the Pact Act that added a bunch of presumptives for Gulf War veterans, as well as some more presumptives for Agent Orange Vietnam era veterans. And then there's, and that's like I said, the 30,000 foot view. It doesn't have all the details in it, and that's passed by Congress, signed by the president, and then goes into effect sometime later. Before the Pact Act, the big one was the Appeals Modernization Act. All things I've done videos on if you look around the page a little bit. The next thing that you might want to look at for sources of law is the Code of Federal Regulations. Now, the Code of Federal Regulations is not written by Congress. The Code of Federal Regulations is actually written by the agency, in this case, the VA. And I'm not going to get into the deep dive of how they do this, but the Code of Federal Regulations are basically proposed by the VA, and then there's what's called a notice and comment period where interested parties, in this case, the various veteran service organizations, lawyers such as myself, comment on the rules themselves, these regulations, and then perhaps they become part of the Code of Federal Regulations and go into effect. Now, what's in the Code of Federal Regulations? Well, this is the details that Congress didn't pass. So, for instance, individual disability ratings are in the Code of Federal Regulations and not the statute. So if you wanted to see how they rate a headache at 0, 10, 30, 50%, you would actually go to the CFR, or Code of Federal Regulations, and not the statute, right? The statute is that 10,000 foot view, 30,000 foot view, really high up view. And then the Code of Federal Regulations is the details, right? There's another source of law that is actually critically important, and one that the VA, quite frankly, misses all the time. And that's case law. So if you appeal your VA disability benefits decision, eventually it'll go to the Board of Veterans' Appeals. And if the Board of Veterans' Appeals does something incorrectly, it can go to the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And if the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims issues a decision that you don't agree with, you can actually appeal that to another federal appellate court. And then if you don't like that decision, you can get up to the Supreme Court, right? This is case law that is critically important to figuring out how we as veterans and we as attorneys, and really how the VA is supposed to interpret their own rules and regulations, or maybe even the statute itself, or maybe make a decision as to whether or not the regulation is inconsistent with the statute. That happens from time to time. So that's the three basic sources of law that I, as a lawyer, tend to look at most when I'm dealing with the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, even the Board of Veterans' Appeals, and really sort of that higher legal appellate review. But when you're down at the agency level and you're appealing through the higher level review or supplemental claim process, there's actually another source of law that you may not even have heard about. That's the M21-1 manual and the M21-5 manual. It's two manuals. 21-5 deals with appeals. 21-1 deals with ratings in general. This is the how-to book that the Department of Veterans Affairs has handed to all of its ratings officials, to all the folks who are actually in the trenches doing the work, to help them on a day-to-day basis interpret the Code of Federal Regulations, the case law, the statutes, how to interpret all that, and actually put that into practice once your file comes across their desk. Now, the crazy thing is that the M21-1 manual isn't always updated with the most recent case law. It's crazy, right? It doesn't make any sense. So you can actually have case law that is binding on the VA, but the folks down in the trenches aren't able to use it because it's not in their manual. The other thing is that the manual has a lot of helpful hints and definitions and whatnot to help the raters understand the file and assign the appropriate rating. Generally, a lot of times, VA raters will just look at the claim and pension exam and pull the data right from the claim and pension exam and plug that into a calculator to determine what the appropriate rating is. And basically plug that into a calculator. They'll take the claim and pension exam and compare it to what's in the CFR. And sometimes that lines up perfectly, but sometimes, as we well know, the claim and pension exams are garbage. They're done by contractors, they're done way too fast by folks who are generally not qualified to give the opinions. And what comes back is an exam that doesn't cover half of what's going on in your file. So what the raters can do, if they take their time to do it, and they rarely do, is that they go through the actual claims file itself using guidance from the M21 to determine what the appropriate rating is, right? So that's how the M21 is used. Now, when I'm doing my advocacy work and I'm doing higher level reviews and I'm talking to the decision review officers and I'm writing my letters to the VA, I try to cite the M21 because that's the document that they're most familiar with. But if you try to cite the M21 to the Board of Veterans Appeals, they will quickly tell you that the M21 is not binding. What they care about is the statute, the regulation, and the case law that has come down from the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims and the various higher appellate courts. Anyway, those are the sources of VA law and how the VA is supposed to make a decision in your case. A lot of times they don't follow those rules. When they don't, you can call an attorney like myself to help you out with an appeal. So if you like this content in this video, please like or subscribe and review some of the other videos on my page. Hopefully you find them helpful. Share this video with your friends or fellow veterans. And if you've been denied service connection or you think your ratings are too low, or you think they got the effective date on your claim wrong, reach out to us using the information in the description of this video, or find us on the web, and we'll be happy to take a look at your file. Anyhow, until next time, take care.